In any leadership position or management position, or in a team where things can be quite strained, this word communication appears, and it can work for us and against us. And the reason I say that is that in today's modern world, especially the multinational world that we live in terms of business, we deal with different languages and different cultures. And many people that I come across genuinely believe that they are effective communicators. However, if that was the case, then conflict and misunderstandings shouldn't really arise. And this model, which we're going to run through, it's very, very simple. And it applies to verbal conversation, written conversation. It also applies to conversations where you are face to face. And if you can think through each stage, every time we need to put some communication out there, you can't really go wrong with it, as long as you're aware of some of the pitfalls. And it works in this way. Someone has an idea. They then encode the idea. They pick the method to transmit. Then they transmit it itself. The person receives the message. It's decoded. And at some point, once they've received it and understood the message, hopefully they'll give some clear feedback. As I've already mentioned, in today's multinational global economy, there is a tendency to use the method of email. And the problem with email is that the person on the receiving end doesn't know the mood that we've been in when we've sent the message. They can't read our body language, they can't look at our facial expressions, and they certainly don't know what's gone on in our particular line of work, either that morning or afternoon, because that can translate sometimes into the language that we put in to an email. So the first stage for me is the method is absolutely critical. And a lot of people do tend to back away from using a telephone or actually going to speak to someone face to face. As I've said, email is looked on as a default setting. And when we've transmitted the message and the person receives it, if the language is quite inflammatory, if it's accusatory, if the message isn't clear, we can't really blame someone when they take that message on board and decode it. If they think, okay, I'm going to give some feedback which isn't very positive, that isn't really their fault. What I would say is that in these situations, when you point the finger at someone, there are always three fingers pointing back at yourself. We aren't blameless when poor communication takes place. And in our modules, leadership modules, and certainly the conflict module and also the coaching module, we focus quite significantly on feedback. Because if the method has been picked correctly, if we've chosen the correct language, then we've focused on the data and not the personality of the person that's on the receiving end of the message itself, then the feedback should be constructive. There shouldn't be any hidden surprises when that person gets back in touch with us. Where it goes wrong is this person looks at whatever message we've sent to them and they react badly. And that's a classic case of conflict rearing its ugly head. So when we have an idea and we encode it, what I would ask everybody to think about before you automatically use email is a really simple step, which is think, breathe, act and clarify. And there's nothing more powerful than before you decide to send a message, get some feedback from someone that's impartial and just ask them, if you were on the receiving end of this, what would you feel? The key word there is feel, because we're talking about feelings and emotions, and that can actually initiate either a positive or negative behaviour with the person on the receiving end. And a simple tool that I use, particularly where emails are concerned, is to record the email, or complete the email, sorry, save it in the draft folder, walk away for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, then come back and think, okay, does the email still make sense? Would I like to be on the receiving end of what I've put in it? And if we can think through these sequential steps and just consider the person on the receiving end and then pick the appropriate method, yes, the communication is far more effective, it's very constructive, but what we don't do is waste time and energy trying to resolve the conflict that invariably comes out of these miscommunicated messages.